Absolutely.
Someone make a ROM hack of Golden Axe 2 on the Genesis and make it Xena.
If people want to see the picture of that sale, they can go to generationretro.ca. Our Facebook page is there. There's a collection of photos that have
And
a
you
bunch
can
of sold listings.
Yeah, you can access Nate's eBay store as well from the About section.
Thanks, Noah. I appreciate that.
No problem. He's got some sealed VHS, Top Gun. I mean, how can you go wrong? It's one of the greatest soundtracks of all time.
Top Gun's great. Sealed VHS. I actually sold a couple of other games, too. Are you interested to know?
What games did you sell? I'm interested. I'm curious.
I sold, with a heavy heart, I sold my copy of Shatterhand, complete in box today. Just sold online. I'll say it for the podcast because this is for the real people who won't troll us. But feel free to troll us. No, I sold it for like $120 Canadian.
Wow, that's actually pretty good.
Well, to think I got the game for like $20 back in the day.
What? You got Shatterhand for $20? Get out of here.
A box and a manual. Yeah, a lot of these games I got for really cheap, man. I'm pretty lucky that way.
Why wasn't I thrifting more often when I was a teenager?
I was literally in first year university when I picked that game up at the Mandalay Flea Market.
Never heard of that place.
It was gone. It closed down like a few years after I started going there, but I got a lot of good deals at that place. This is back when there was like not as much competition as there is today. But I just thought, the time is ripe. What are you doing? Are you eating something?
Sorry, I had some nerds.
Oh my god, it sounds different. I didn't know what it was. No, anyways, but Shatterhand, yeah, I bought it for $20, complete in box. Nobody really cared about games back then, and I thought if I don't sell it now, literally I'm gonna hold it until I retire, and nobody's gonna care about Nintendo games anymore by that time. I think the market will be gone, so my only time to exit some of these games is right now, I think. Personally. Who knows? I could be wrong, right?
Yeah.
In 20 years, there might be
who knows? Again. Maybe another boom of NES nostalgia from the kids who grew up playing NES Classic or Virtual Console games. It could happen, you never know.
We may not know, but the analysts will say you are wrong. Well, collecting goes in cycles, right?
Yeah,
it's Nintendo's time right now. It's prime. My era, my age of people are in our 30s and 40s, and we have our disposable income, and we're still too young to think about retirement, so we waste our money on stuff like that.
Exactly, you're trying to recapture that childhood you once had.
Well, that's why I'm not selling my PlayStation 2 stuff yet, or my GameCube stuff yet. I don't think the market has reached the peak for that era yet.
But you know what? The market will reach a peak for my generation stuff eventually.
Well, I consider your generation the era, in the next 5-10 years, they're going to want to pick up their PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 1. You guys grew up on that as your Nintendo? GameCube?
Yeah, GameCube, Game Boy Advance. Actually, my first system was a Super Nintendo, oddly enough. But, like I said, I always had a lot of hand-me-down as a kid, so that was,
To you,
yeah.
Super Nintendo is the equivalent for my Atari. Came out just before I was born. You know what I mean? So you had a hand-me-down Super Nintendo.
Funny you should say that. I actually do have an Atari, and I love my Atari.
Yeah, you are... well, it's a fun system to own, to play, but from a collector standpoint, which more I'm, turning into, a collector, there's not much value in the selling market. I'm sure there's tons of value for you to enjoy it.
Oh yeah, that's what I love about the Atari market is it's dirt cheap for a lot of games.
And I don't see another boom happening for the Atari anytime soon.
Maybe the rarest Atari games are Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Air Raid, and I know I'm never going to be able to afford those, so I just pirated ROMs off the internet. I mean, legally backed up copies I borrowed from a friend.
Yes, you misspoke there, Noah.
I misspoke. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think now I'm starting to sell a little bit of my Nintendo stuff. The stuff I didn't care about anyways. I have some big names right now on the auction block, but it's being sold via commission by somebody else, so I kind of don't want to say it yet. But these are kind of big games that don't have any nostalgia to me. That makes sense.
And if you really wanted to play them again, you have a RetroPod, probably.
Because I backed up a copy of it, of course.
Exactly. You can rip your own ROMs. We have the technology.
You know, now that you mentioned Game Boy Advance, I wonder what the market is like for Game Boy Advance games right now. If anyone else out there
Uh,
knows, comment below. But
all I can tell you is that Pokemon is still holds its value because it's Pokemon. Um, it really depends on the game. The rarest GBA game that I know of is Ninja 5.0.
Ninja 5. Let's make a prediction right now. No, I'm gonna predict. I think Game Boy Advance games are in the early stages of its value cycle. I don't know if that's a real term. I think
A
they'll
lot
be
of the
Game Boy
RPGs,
Advance games.
a lot of the RPGs like Fire Emblem and the Final Fantasy ports, those can run you a pretty penny. So I think the big money in GBA right now is the RPGs than Pokemon.
Yeah, but I think even those games in the next 5-10 years are gonna go up because
No, undoubtedly.
those guys are gonna be 30. But after that, I think there'll be a flattening and a depression in prices.
You know what I like collecting? Game Boy Color, because it's in that sweet spot of not too expensive and not.
Not that good.
Yeah.
The Game Boy Color is pretty rough. There's some good Game Boy Color games.
Oh yeah.
Bionic
Have you
Commando.
seen the port of Street Fighter Alpha 1 on Game Boy Color? It's a technical marvel.
I think we have different definitions of technical marvel.
I mean, they almost ported the first Resident Evil to Game Boy Color. It was amazing.
You know what I like was Resident Evil Gaiden. I thought was really good actually.
That is a fun little spin-off, yeah.
Yeah, I like the mechanics in that one, the shooting mechanic or whatever. That's kind of fun. And I still had that sense of like thrill and suspense from the zombies playing that game. I thought that translated really well. Plus, it was a fun little side quest for like Barry. Was it Barry and Leon shows up in that game too? I think.